right, so topic 7 is the last topic of the unit, and we're going to talk about 30, 60, 90 triangles. So 30, 60, 90 triangles are actually created from equilateral triangles. So let's say that we have this equilateral triangle, and every side length here is 2. And remember, if all the sides are equal, all the angles are equal, and we know from previous units that all of these angles are 60 degrees. Now, I don't see, remember 30, 60, and 90 represent angles in a triangle, so this is not a right triangle yet, but if we chop this equilateral triangle in half, I'm actually just going to use I'm going to use a solid line, not a dotted line. If I chop this triangle in half, I actually get a 90-degree angle. That's the height, okay? So that makes a 90-degree angle a 60-degree angle. It chops this bottom side length into 1 and 1. And if we focus on just this half of an equilateral triangle, okay, this top angle up here actually also gets chopped in half and is 30. So that right part of an equilateral triangle, or each half, is a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And notice that triangle has side lengths 1 and 2, and then this is unknown, this leg here. So let's actually use the Pythagorean theorem. So c squared, that's 2 squared, equals, one of my legs is 1 squared, and I'm solving for the other one. 2 squared is 4, 1 squared is 1, plus x squared. Subtract the 1 from each side, and I get 3 equals x squared. Take the square root, and I know that x equals the square root of 3. So this side length here is actually the square root of 3. And these 3 side lengths are the special sides of a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So across from the hypotenuse is always the side length 2. So across from the 90, I have the 2. Across from the 30, I have 1. So that's going to be down here. And then across from the 60, I have the square root of 3. Okay? So this is kind of the basic 30, 60, 90 triangle that we have. But again, like we did with 45, 45, 90, we can scale this up or down as much as we want. So really, the side lengths will become x, 2x, and x root 3. And this example here is just plugging in the number x equals 1, just like we did before. Okay? So let's look at some examples. Again, we're going to do the whole I try, you try. So I'm going to solve the problem on the left, you're going to pause the video, and then you will try the problem on the right after. So problem number 1, always identify, is what type of triangle is this? I see this 30 and this 90, so I know this is a 30, 60, 90 triangle, okay? Then I'm going to label my sides. Across from the 30 is the x, across from the 90 is the 2x, and across from, well, if this is 30 and this is 90, this angle must be 60, right? So across from the 60 is the x root 3. And just like we did before, where did I give you some information? I gave you that the side that's labeled x. So I know that x has to equal 5. And now I can just plug in. So if x is 5, then this side length here, I'm going to plug in for x, has to be 5 root 3. And this side length here, I'm going to plug in for x, it has to be 2 times 5, which is 10. So my side lengths were 5 root 3 and 10. All right, pause the video and try example B. All right, so you should have gotten, for example B, that this side length was 7 root 3, and this side length is 14, okay? Let's go through that just to make sure that everyone's okay. If this is the 60, right, and then that means that this angle is 30, and across from the 30 is the x, across from the 90 is the 2x, and across from the 60 is the x root 3. I gave you information here on the side. So that means that x is 7, and then we can plug in. I plugged in for this x here, got 7 root 3. Plugged in for this x here, did 2 times 7, and got 14. All right? So we're still on level 1, but let's look at examples C and D. So I'm just going to record our answers from before. we had 5, 5 root 3, and 10, 7, 7 root 3, and 14. Okay? And I forgot to say this before, but these triangles, this triangle was scaled up by 5, right? And this triangle is scaled up by 7. So if that makes sense for you and you want to use the scale factors, feel free to do so, okay? But if not, I would still just follow the steps that we're going through, all right? So example C, it's a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Let's label the sides. Across from the, if this is the 60, this is my 30. Across from the 30 is x. Across from the 60 is x root 3. Across from the 90 is 2x. I gave you information here. That means x root 3 equals 4 root 3. When we divide by the 4 root 3 on each side, the root 3's are going to cancel, and we're just going to be left with x equaling 4. Oops, sorry, that's wrong. X equaling 4. Okay? And now let's plug in. So I know that this x is going to be 4, and this is going to be 2 times 4, which is going to get me to 8. So that's that side length there. All right? Pause the video and try example D. All right, in example D, you should have gotten your answers as 2 and 4. So you should have labeled your sides across from the 30 is x, x root 3 across from the 60, and 2x. Set up the equation x root 3 equals 2 root 3. Recognize that the root 3's when you divide will cancel, and you'll get x is 2. Plug in and do x is 2 here, and then 2 times 2 is 4, and get the hypotenuse. All right? All right, so let's move up to level 2. So A and B. It's a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Find that 30-degree angle first. I always like to do that because across from the 30-degree angle is the x, across from the 60 is the x root 3, and then I have the 2x. I've told you the hypotenuse in these examples, so that means I know that 2x has to equal 8 divided by 2. We're solving for x, and that means x has to be 4, and then I can plug in. So if x is 4, that means the side length across from the 30 is 4, and plug in here, the side length across from the 60 is 4 root 3, and I'm done. All right? Pause the video, try example B. So for example B, you should have gotten your answers as 6 and 6 root 3. So let's go through that. Across from the 30 is x, across from the 60 is x root 3, across from the 90 is 2x. I gave you the hypotenuse, so I can solve for x. 2x equals 12, divide by 2, x equals 6, and then plug in. X is 6 here, plug in for x here, and you get 6 root 3. All right? Let's look at C and D. I believe that's on the other page. Okay, so this is still level 2, all right, but we are going to, they're a little bit different, okay? So I have the 30, 60, 90 triangle. I'm giving you the side across from the 30. So that's my x, across from the 60 is x root 3, and then I have 2x. Now, when I give you the side across from the 30, I know that that's x, so x is going to be 4 root 3. But in example, in level 1, this was always just a whole number, okay? And now I have that root 3, so it's just going to be a little bit trickier to plug in. So let's plug in to the hypotenuse first. Let's do 2 times x, and x is 4 root 3. So I can just multiply the constants out front. 2 times 4 is 8, so the hypotenuse is 8 root 3, okay? Now let's plug in for this x here, right? I'm going to do 4 root 3 times root 3, and this should feel familiar to what we did with 45, 45, 90 triangles. So root 3 times root 3 is root 9. I know the square root of 9 is 3, and I know 4 times 3 is 12. So the side length across from the 60-degree angle is 12. Pause the video and try example number D, or letter D. All right, so for letter D, you should have had 18 root 3, and then 27, I believe, okay? Let's just check and go through that. So this is the 60-degree angle, here's the 30, across from the 30 is x, across from the 60 is x root 3, and 2x. Let's solve for the hypotenuse first. I knew that x here was 9 root 3, so I'm going to plug in to 2x. So 2 times 9 root 3, multiply 2 times 9, and I get 18 root 3. Okay? And now let's solve for the side across from the 60. I'm going to plug in for the x here. 9 root 3 times root 3. Root 3 times root 3 is root 9. Root 9 is 3, and 9 times 3 is 27. So we're good. Okay? All right, let's look at example, or the level 3. I'm going to just need a little bit more space here, so let's get a fresh page. Okay, this is definitely the hardest example. It's very similar to what we did with 45, 45, 90 triangles, okay? So I'm giving you the side across from the 60, that's the x root 3, but this side is a whole number, okay? So that side's x root 3, this side is x, and this side is 2x. So I have the equation that I know x root 3 is going to have to equal 12. So just like we did before, let's divide by root 3 to cancel that out and get that x is equal to 12 over root 3. Now some of you might leave this here, but I think what I would like us to do is I would like us to rationalize. And if you remember, that means I'm going to multiply by the big 1. And in this case, I'm going to look at the radical here. If I want to cancel out root 3, the big 1 that I want to use is actually root 3 over root 3. So I'm going to multiply by root 3 over root 3. And now let's multiply across. 12 times root 3 is 12 root 3. And root 3 times root 3, you could probably skip that step, but root 3 times root 3 is root 9. The square root of 9 is 3, so I have 12 root 3 over 3. And then we can divide. What's 12 divided by 3? That's 4. So that answer is 4 root 3, and that's what I solved for x. Okay, so I can plug that in over here. This side length would be 4, my pen's messing up, 4 root 3. And then I still have to plug in for the hypotenuse. So I have to do 2 times x, so 2 times 4 root 3, multiply 2 times 4, and I get 8 root 3. Okay, and this is actually the same example as level 2, I think C, right? We had the side lengths, we got 4 root 3, 12, and 8 root 3, which is what we've done. We just went in a different method, okay? Pause the video, try example B. So for example B, you should have gotten 2 root 3 and 4 root 3 as your answer, okay? So if you got that, you're good to go, but let's go through it if you didn't. Label my side lengths, should have been x, x root 3, and 2x. I gave you this side here, so I know that x root 3 has to equal 6. I'm going to divide by root 3 on both sides. It cancels here, and I'm left with x equaling 6 over root 3. I'm going to multiply by the big 1, root 3 over root 3. Multiply across. You should have gotten 6 times root 3 is 6 root 3. Root 3 times root 3 is root 9. The square root of 9 is 3. Divide 6 divided by 3, and x is 2 root 3, which we plugged in right here. And then we did 2 times 2 root 3 and got 4 root 3. All right? So I know that was a little bit of a longer video, but definitely more cases here. So good luck practicing, and if you need to ask your teacher for help, please do so.